whether the 6 days of Genesis are solar days, as we know them, or longer periods of time is a debate with a long history. Many scientists point to fossils and geological data as proof that the Earth is millions of years old, so one of the views held is the age-day theory, which attempts to harmonize the Genesis account with current scientific theory, by holding that the 6 days were long ages of time, rather than literal days of 24 hours. The arguments used to support the idea that the days were ages of perhaps millions of years are based on the fossil and geological evidence, which are assumed to be accurate, as interpreted by evolutionary scientists, and on interpretations of the Genesis account itself. The supporters of this view, which date back to the earliest Christian era, point out that a 24-hour day meaning is impossible, because the sun is not recorded as created until the 4th day, so solar days could not exist the first 3 days. This view also holds that since God is still resting from creation, the 7th day is not a solar day, which means that the others likewise cannot be. Also, the Hebrew word for day, yom, is used elsewhere in the Bible, to indicate longer periods of time than 24 hours, such as in Psalms chapter 90 verse 4, and 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 8, also Zechariah chapters 12 to 14. Those who oppose the age-day view point out that the Genesis account does not need to be harmonized with science, but that science needs to be harmonized with the scriptures. The geological and fossil evidence do not conclusively prove an Earth age of millions of years, and can in large part be explained by the apparent age theory. This is the theory that God created everything at full maturity, with the appearance of having gone through the normal development stages. Examples of this would be Adam and Eve, created fully grown, and the wine Jesus created in Cana, fully fermented in an instant of time.
My time has not yet come.
Do whatever he tells you.
The Jews have rules about ritual washing, and for this purpose 6 stone water jars were there, each one large enough to hold between 20 and 30 gallons.
Fill these jars with water.
They filled them to the brim.
Now draw some water out and take it to the man in charge of the feast.
They took him the water, which now had turned into wine, and he tasted it. He did not know where this wine had come from, but of course the servants who had drawn out the water knew. So he called the bridegroom.
Everyone else serves the best wine first, and after the guests have drunk a lot, he serves the ordinary wine. But you have kept the best wine until now.
Jesus performed this first miracle in Cana in Galilee. There he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him.
This would explain the Earth's appearance of millions of years of age, while in reality it was only recently created. Some of the fossil evidence and geological data can also be explained by a universal flood depositing strata and fossils. Regarding the meaning of yom, those who oppose the age-day theory point out that when yom is used with a specific number, in this case 6 days, it always means a 24-hour day. Examples of this would be the 40 days Moses was on Mount Sinai and the 3 days Jonah was inside the great fish.
Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it according to their various kinds. And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day.
In this verse is a latent proof that the days of Genesis were literal 24-hour days. The flowering plants were created on the third day, but the insects were not until the sixth day. If there were millions of years encompassed in, or between, each of these days, how could these flowering plants have survived without the insects to pollinate? In fact, how could they have survived until the fourth day, during which the sun was created, if these 2 days were separated? Additional evidence is that Exodus 20:11 refers to the 6 days of creation apparently as 24-hour days.
For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and made it holy.
More than 700 times in the Old Testament, the plural of yom is used and always has 24-hour days in view. The burden of proof is on those who argue that the word yom cannot be understood in its plain and natural sense. As for the argument that the first 3 days could not be solar days, God could have caused things to operate on the kind of plan he later would use in the solar days, in preparation for the sun's creation on day 4. The Genesis account clearly reports there was evening and there was morning, one day. Even without the sun, there was an operation like that of the solar days shortly to follow. While it is true that God is still resting from creation, the scripture refers to the resting of God in the past tense, not the present. The seventh day does not continue, but was a specific time in the past when he ceased creating. Many who oppose the age day theory hold to a solar day and recent creation view, along with a universal flood and apparent age theory, to explain the fossil and geological evidence. As illustrated in this rebuttal to the age day view, as well as other evidence, there is no compelling reason to abandon the solar day and recent creation view.